Chapter 6. Previously, after outmaneuvering Holloway at the scrapyard auction, Elias and Kenji restore the Junkyard Cluster only to discover a hidden map to Silas Vane's illegal server. Now armed with this intelligence, the team must shift from survival mode to planning an offensive infiltration of Vane Dynamics headquarters. Now, Chapter 6 begins. The air in the Ethicore workshop tasted of ozone and burnt plastic, a familiar perfume for Elias Thorne. Around him, the Junkyard Cluster hummed, a chaotic symphony of mismatched fans, salvaged GPUs held together by zip ties, and industrial capacitors glowing with unstable amber light. It was ugly, inefficient by corporate standards, and entirely theirs. Maya Lin stood over the central terminal, her fingers flying across a mechanical keyboard that had seen better decades. On the screen, the encrypted drive Alina Vance had passed them was finally yielding its secrets. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, painting the dim room in shades of green and crimson. "It's real," Maya said, her voice tight. She didn't look up. "The ghost server exists. The coordinates match the metadata we pulled from Silas's embezzlement logs, but look at the gateway." Elias leaned in, wiping grease from his forehead with the back of his hand. The interface displayed a formidable barrier, a level 5 biometric firewall. It wasn't just a password, it was a living lock, requiring a continuous stream of executive-level physiological data, heart rhythm, thermal signature, and neural resonance. "Air-gapped," Kenji Sato muttered from the shadows near the server rack. The former Vane engineer was tinkering with a tangle of wires, his face illuminated by the spark of a soldering iron. "No remote access. No backdoor. You have to be physically present, wearing an authorized badge and breathing the same air as the scanner." "Can we brute force the handshake?" Elias asked, though he already knew the answer. Kenji snorted, setting down his tool. "Try it, and Vane Dynamics Security AI will trace the signal back to this zip code before you finish the first iteration. They'll send a tactical team, not a cease and desist letter." As if on cue, the monitors flickered. A silent alarm tripped on Kenji's diagnostic rig. He froze, his eyes widening. "They're pinging us. Not a full scan, but a probe. Someone at Vane Dynamics is testing our digital perimeter. They know we have the drive." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The pressure shifted instantly from technical frustration to the cold, sharp edge of survival. They were being hunted. Maya spun her chair around, her expression hardening. "We can't wait for them to come here. We need the key now. Silas Vane is attending the Titans Gala tonight. Every executive badge issued for that event uses near-field authentication for VIP lounge access. If we can get within 3 seconds of physical proximity, we can skim the cryptographic hash." "A crowded room full of Vane loyalists," Elias said, staring at the blinking red dot on Kenji's screen. "And Silas will be surrounded by security." "Exactly," Maya replied, pulling a schematic from a drawer. She slapped a small, cobbled-together device onto the table. It looked like a piece of jewelry made from scrap copper and a repurposed radio coil. "That's why we aren't going in as hackers. We're going in as guests. Kenji, can you forge the invites?" Kenji grinned, a dangerous flash of teeth. "I can make us look like board members. Give me 20 minutes. The Titans Gala was a study in excess, held in the glass-walled atrium of the city's tallest tech conglomerate headquarters. Chandeliers composed of fiber-optic cables cast a cool, blue light over the elite of the industry. Waiters moved silently through the crowd, offering flutes of champagne that cost more than Elias' monthly rent. Elias adjusted his tie, feeling the weight of the forged invite in his pocket. Beside him, Maya looked stunning in a borrowed gown, her posture radiating a confidence she didn't quite feel. They stepped into the flow of the party, immediately assaulted by the low hum of conversation and the clinking of glass. "Look who the trash dragged in," a voice sneered. Julian Vane blocked their path, a smirk plastered on his face. He was dressed in an immaculate suit, holding a glass of wine with practiced nonchalance. Behind him, two security guards watched with predatory stillness. "Julian," Elias said, keeping his voice level, "didn't think you'd be here. I heard compliance was auditing your expense reports." Julian's smile tightened. "Funny, I heard Etha Core was scavenging parts from dumpsters again. Desperate times, Elias. Maybe you should beg Silas for a contract. He might toss you a scrap." Whispers rippled through the nearby clusters of guests. Scrap tech, dumpster divers, failed founders. The social pressure was a physical weight designed to make them shrink, to apologize, to leave. Julian feigned a stumble, his elbow jerking forward as if to spill his wine directly onto Elias' chest. It was a classic move. Humiliate the guest, force security to intervene, and eject them for causing a scene. Elias didn't flinch. As Julian lunged, Elias subtly tapped the napkin ring on his own wrist. It was a passive signal jammer disguised as silverware built from junkyard scraps. A microscopic burst of interference flooded the local network. The lights above them flickered once. A waiter's tablet froze. For 3 seconds, the ambient noise of the gala stuttered as the building's smart systems rebooted. In that moment of confusion, Julian lost his balance for real, splashing wine onto his own pristine shoes. Security surged forward, not toward Elias, but to assist the stumbling executive. "Clumsy," Elias murmured, stepping around the mess. "Careful, Julian, you wouldn't want to damage company property." He and Maya slipped away into the crowd before Julian could recover his dignity. The VIP lounge was separated from the main hall by a velvet rope and an aura of exclusivity. Inside, the air was quieter, thicker. Silas Vane held court near the balcony doors, a circle of sycophants hanging on his every word. He was a towering figure, charismatic and ruthless, the king of this concrete jungle. Elias and Maya lingered near the periphery, waiting. They needed an introduction, a reason to be close. "Elias," a smooth voice called out. Elena Vance emerged from the shadows, elegant and unreadable. She wore a dress that seemed to shift color with the light, her expression masking any hint of conspiracy. Silas was just mentioning the non-aggression pact. He believes there are loose ends to discuss. She guided them toward the center of the circle. Silas turned, his eyes narrowing as he recognized Elias. The warmth in his gaze was artificial, a predator sizing up prey. "Thorn," Silas said, his voice carrying easily over the quiet music. "I hear you're running a charming little recycling operation. Tell me, does it pay well? Or are you here to beg for supply chain access? Perhaps if you ask nicely, I'll let you bid on our next batch of e-waste." The circle of executives chuckled. It was a public execution of reputation. Elias reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a business card or a plea. He pulled out a folded paper napkin. With a steady hand, he placed it on the small table between them. "I'm not here to beg, Silas," Elias said softly. "I'm here to offer a trade." Silas glanced at the napkin, then back at Elias, amused. "A trade? What could you possibly have that I want?" "Open it." Curiosity, or perhaps arrogance, got the better of Silas. He unfolded the napkin. Printed on it, in stark black ink, was a single line of code. It was a snippet from Silas's own private ledger, a fragment of the embezzlement logs Elias had uncovered weeks ago. It referenced a shell company and a transfer of funds that didn't exist on any official balance sheet. Silas froze. The color drained from his face, replaced by a mask of pure shock. The laughter around them died instantly as the executives noticed their leader's sudden stillness. "You," Silas whispered, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Where did you get this?" "The question isn't where," Elias said, leaning in slightly, lowering his voice so only Silas and Alina could hear. "The question is what happens if this line of code gets pushed to the regulatory board, or the press." Silas's composure shattered. In a fit of arrogant fury, he lunged forward, grabbing Elias by the lapels of his jacket. He yanked him close, their faces inches apart, ignoring the gasps of the surrounding crowd. You think you can threaten me? Silas hissed, his breath hot against Ilia's cheek. You are nothing. I will bury you so deep. As Silas grabbed him, he pulled Ilia's flush against his chest. The executive badge pinned to Silas's lapel pressed firmly against the hidden RFID skimmer concealed within Ilia's own lapel pin. 3 seconds. Ilias counted silently in his head, maintaining eye contact with the raging CEO, his face a mask of calm defiance. 1, 2, 3. The skimmer pulsed once, a microscopic vibration against Ilia's ribcage. The cryptographic hash of Silas's biometric signature was captured, stored, and transmitted. Silas released him with a shove, straightening his own suit. Get out, he spat. Get out before I have security drag you out by your neck. Gladly, Ilias said, smoothing his jacket. He nodded once to Alina, whose expression remained perfectly neutral, and turned to leave. The cool night air of the street level felt like salvation. Ilias walked briskly toward the exit, Maya matching his pace, her hand gripping his arm tightly. They maintained the facade of calm until they passed the revolving doors and merged into the shadow of the building's overhang. Kenji, Ilias whispered into his collar mic. Static crackled, then Kenji's voice, laced with adrenaline, came through. Got it. Clean capture. The hash is solid. We have the key to the ghost server. Ilias exhaled, a long, shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had done it. They had stared down the giant and stolen his fire. Stop right there. The voice was deep, authoritative. Blocking their path to the curb was a man in a dark tactical suit, devoid of logos but radiating menace. It was Silas's head of security. He wasn't alone, 2 others flanked him, cutting off escape routes. Ilias tensed, ready to run, but the security chief raised a hand. Relax, Thorn, we aren't arresting you. Silas knows you're bluffing about the extent of the data. He knows you don't have the full ledger yet. The chief stepped forward, his movements precise. But he also knows you're dangerous, and he doesn't like loose ends. Before Ilias could react, the chief snatched the smartphone from Ilias' pocket. With a casual, brutal motion, he crushed the device in his gloved hand, sparks flying as the battery ruptured. He dropped the smoking wreckage at Ilias' feet. That was your local copy of the skimmed data, the chief said calmly. Gone, now you have to rely on your cloud backup, which, I assure you, Silas's cyber warfare division is already hunting. You have the key, yes, but now everyone knows you're coming. He stepped back, gesturing for them to pass. Run along, Founder, the clock is ticking. Ilias stared at the broken phone, then at the retreating figure of the security chief. They had the biometric hash. They could access the server, but they had lost their anonymity, their primary communication device, and the element of surprise. Maya, Ilias said, his voice low as they began to walk quickly toward the subway station. Call Kenji. Tell him to prep the infiltration team. We move tonight. On it, Maya replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But Ilias, Kenji just pinged me again. What is it? The biometric hash, she said, checking her tablet. It's decaying. Silas uses multi-factor rotation protocols. The key we stole has a half-life of 4 hours. After that, it becomes useless garbage. Ilias looked up at the skyline, where the Vane Dynamics Tower loomed like a monolith against the night sky. Far above, the faint buzz of security drones began to sweep the neighborhood, their searchlights cutting through the fog. 4 hours, Ilias repeated, then we better move fast. They disappeared into the shadows of the city, the hunt now truly begun. In the next chapter, as the stolen biometric key begins its countdown, Ilias and his team breach the ghost server only to discover that their patron Alina Vance has been manipulating them all along.